Here's how Trump could try to steal the election and how you can stop it. Spoiler alert, it involves you voting as early as possible, in person if you can. So there are some really weird possible outcomes from this election, and I'm going to walk you through some of them. In case you missed it, President Trump is already trying to delegitimize the election results.
This election will be the most rigged election in history.
It shouldn't be surprising. He is the first president in history ever to contest the results of an election he won, falsely claiming that millions voted illegally. Now, President Trump is predicting a red wave, but here's what you need to know about election night. Even in a normal year, and this is not one, there are phenomena known as the red mirage and the blue shift. When votes first start getting counted, it looks like Republicans are winning. This can be a red mirage because once all the votes are counted, shift happens. The total shifts to the Democrats. Now, there are some very basic, obvious reasons for this. Votes are counted by precinct. Republicans tend to live in more sparsely populated precincts, while Democrats tend to live in more densely populated ones. If there are 8,400 people living in Liberty County, Florida, and nearly 2 million in Broward County, which one do you think is going to finish counting first? But in 2020, it's going to be much more extreme, because we are expecting, and in fact we're already seeing, a record amount of voting by mail. And as you might guess, it takes longer to count mail-in votes. Millions of mail-in ballots have already been cast, and in many key swing states, they can't even start opening the envelopes until Election Day. And who is voting by mail? 69% of Biden voters are expected to vote by mail, compared to only 19% of Trump voters. That means, even if the vast majority of voters pick Biden over Trump, Trump could have a big lead on election night. And his team is trying to make any shift sound suspicious.
Their plan is to add millions of fraudulent ballots that can cancel your vote.
First, voter fraud is so rare as to be almost non-existent. Second, there's no evidence that mail-in votes are more susceptible to fraud. In fact, it's likely the reverse, since many states have barcodes, signature verification, and other safeguards. During this year's primaries, over 500,000 mail-in ballots were rejected. Not because of fraud, as the president would like you to think, but just because there's so much extra scrutiny and many additional technical things you can get wrong filling them out, like forgetting to sign it. But Trump and his team are using this baseless fraud threat as a pretext to demand that counting stop on election night. He's tweeting things like, "Must know election results on the night of the election, not days, months, or even years later." But stopping the count while the mail-in ballots are still being opened would be like saying you have to decide the Super Bowl based on the halftime score. And here's the slippery bit. He doesn't need to stop the count. He just needs to slow it down. And you know he's good at slowing things down.
Slow the testing down, please.
See, while he's wrong to claim that we must know the results the night of the election, he's right that we can't wait months. When the Electoral College votes is inscribed in federal law. This year it falls on December 14th. Point of reference, the Florida recount in the election of 2000 didn't get resolved until the Supreme Court ruled on December 12th. If a state doesn't have a certified count in time, state legislatures can appoint the electors who will select the president in the Electoral College, regardless of how people in the state voted. And most of the key battleground states have Republican legislatures. Remember how we keep saying that state and local elections are important? Now, some of the swing states have Republican legislatures and Democratic governors. That can lead to some very messy scenarios that, in the interest of time, I'm not even going to try to explain, but I'm going to leave links in the comments where you can read more. But it is entirely possible that if there is a contested count, some states could just not send any electors to the Electoral College. The entire state's vote could just not count, which could create a situation where neither candidate can win a majority of electoral votes. So what happens then? It's actually happened 3 times. Once in the election of 1800, once in 1824, and once on the TV show Veep.
What in the wide world of
If there's no majority in the Electoral College, it goes to Congress. The House chooses the president and the Senate chooses the vice president. But it gets weirder. It's not the current House and Senate. It's the ones who've just been elected. That's one more reason why so much is riding on the House and the very flippable Senate elections this year. So how would this work out? Well, if the balance of power in the Senate stays the way it is, Republicans would almost certainly pick Mike Pence as the VP. If Democrats win a net of 3 seats, the Senate would be divided 50-50. As current vice president, Mike Pence would be the tiebreaker and would presumably be the deciding vote for himself. That's awkward. If Democrats net 4 new seats, they would presumably elect Kamala Harris as VP. And then, since the House is controlled by Democrats, they'd elect Biden, right? Wrong! When deciding a presidential election, the House doesn't vote as individual members. It's 1 vote per state delegation. So the 1 rep from Montana's vote counts as much as the 52 reps from California put together. Under the current House makeup, we would expect Trump to win in the House 26-23. It is easy to imagine a scenario where we end up with Trump as president and Kamala Harris as vice president, which would certainly change the stakes if President Trump were to be re-impeached. I know I just threw a lot at you, so if you have questions, please leave them in the comments, or you can tweet them at me, apiper13, and I will do my best to answer them. Also, there has been great reporting on all of this by The Atlantic, The New Yorker, and Newsweek, so I'm going to leave some of those links in the comments as well. But regardless of the outcome, if this election gets decided either in the Supreme Court or in Congress, it would be bad for our country. It would undermine faith in the democratic process, and it would deepen our political divisions. Both of these things, we've been told by the intelligence community, are what Russia was really going for when it worked to help elect Donald Trump. So no matter who you are voting for, the best thing you can do for our democracy is to vote as early as you can, and if you can do it in person, it would be a whole lot better. Most states have some form of early in-person voting. You can find out when and where and how you can vote at vote.org. Make a specific plan. Decide when, where, and how you're going to vote. Chances are you can do it right now. So go for it. No, I'm serious. I mean, go right now. We'll all still be here when you get back. Go. What are you still doing here? Go. Vote.